Now I'm going to demonstrate how to transfer culture from a broth, okay, to a sterile broth. So this is a culture. You can see it's turbid, it's cloudy, and this here is a sterile broth. So I'm going to transfer bacteria from this culture to this broth. So the first thing we need to do is to sterilize our loop. Alright, sterilize our inoculating loop. To sterilize the inoculating loop, you do it so as the entire filament or the entire loop is red hot. So the top of the flame is usually the hottest part of it, and you move as you go from the top. Okay, observe it's getting red, and then you move towards the other part. So now your entire loop is sterilized. Okay, so sterilize your loop, number one, red hot, all the way red hot. And then you need to flame the opening of the culture. Before you collect from this, you need to flame the opening. Observe, one, okay, flame the opening. Actually, you could just do, and that's good enough. I am not going to put the top part down. This can actually lead to contamination. So I'm going to hold, and I'm not holding it face up, I'm holding it down. Okay, I flame the opening, then I insert, and now I collect bacteria. So if you observe, there is liquid within, or culture within the loop. Once I have collected, then I can flame the opening, cover, and return it. Now I still have my culture here without leading to exposing it to contaminants. So I work right next to the heat. Next is, this is my sterile broth. I remove, flame the opening, and then I introduce my culture. Once I'm done, flame the opening one more time, cover, and then return. Now finally flame or sterilize my loop. Alright, let's take a look at how I do it again. So here is a sterile broth, and actually let me, I forgot one thing which is very important, as I indicated earlier on. You always label whatever you're working with. So I know this is serratia. So I'm just going to put SMA marcescens. Alright, so always label first. So let's try it one more time. So I have my loop. First thing I need to do is to sterilize my loop. The top part of the flame is the hottest part. So observe that the top part of the loop is red hot. Then I move down until the entire filament is actually red hot. So now I know this is sterilized. Next is I take my culture. This is a culture. You can see it's cloudy, which means it has bacteria or something growing in there. I uncover, remove the top. I flame. Alright. Now there are two ways. I can hold the cover with this one, or I can put the cover within this one. So it's up to you, depending on how familiar you are with the technique. Next is flame the opening to prevent, again, to get rid of any contaminants, or that can lead to contaminating your what you're going to work with, or what you have inside this test tube. Next is I collect. So here I have a loop full of culture. Once I'm done, I then flame the opening one more time, put the top, and put it away. Now it's for my sterile medium. Alright, my new broth. This is what I'm going to inoculate. So I remove the top, flame the opening, then I inoculate with the inoculum that I collected previously. When I'm done, flame the opening, then I return, put away, And then we sterilize until it's red hot. Also, don't forget to label. Typically, you should label before you actually begin this. So we have SM. I just put SM. I could put my name. If you're in a group, you put your name and you put the date. All right? Let's do it one more time. So we are going to inoculate. This time we're going to use a different one. This is BS, Bacillus subtilis. Observe there is sediment. So to disperse the sediment, I gave a little mixing or twirling. So now I can see that this is within, floating around the medium. I'm going to take or collect culture from this, and I'm going to inoculate a sterile broth. It is, as I said, it is always the best to label first. So now I am going to label. I'll just put BS, B subtilis. I know that's what I'm going to put in here. So the next thing is I flame or sterilize my loop. Okay, sterilize. The top part is the hottest. Until you sterilize, you burn it, you flame it until it's red hot, all the way to the very last part of the filament. Okay, so once again, the top part, you can do it this way also. You could do it this way. All right, typically I like doing it that way. So now it's red hot, now I sterilize. Wait a few seconds, let it cool down, and then you collect. Okay, so here again, so now I need to collect from this. I hold the lead, don't put it down, flame the opening, I collect a loop full, all right, flame the opening, and then I return. Next is to inoculate this sterile broth, so I remove the lid, flame the opening, and then I inoculate. I am not going all the way down. You really don't need to go all the way down. As long as your loop part is introduced, you have introduced bacteria into your culture. Next, flame the opening, and then you put away for incubation. And finally, you flame and sterilize your loop. So this was inoculating a broth to another broth. All right, a broth to another broth. Now let's inoculate a broth to a slant. A broth, and this is SM. I am going to inoculate a slant. Okay, so this is the slant, this is the broth. This is SM, so I always label first. If you forget, you can always do it afterwards, like I did earlier on. Okay, again, if you're working in groups, you could put your initial, you put the date, you could put the entire names. But because this is demonstration, I'll take the shortcut. So this is what I'm going to inoculate, so I need to collect from here. Okay, so now, again, sterilize your loop, red hot. Red hot, red hot. Now it's sterilized. Wait a few seconds, let it cool down. You're going to collect from your culture, flame the opening, collect your inoculum, okay, flame the opening, return, and now to the one that you're going to inoculate. You do the very same thing, flame the opening. For the slant, you actually go in, keep the slant flat, the top part flat, go towards the bottom part of it, and then you could do a straight inoculating where you just go straight down, or you can actually do a zigzag, all right, where you do a zigzag. So that's fine. It all depends on what you're working with and what the purpose of that particular inoculation. Flame the opening, return, put away for incubation, and then you sterilize your loop. Red hot. Let's do another one. So here I have a slant. This time I'm going to use BS, Bacillus subtilis. Actually, I'm going to use Micrococcus luteus. Alright, so you can see it's cloudy. Alright, it's probably a little bit of sediment, but it's cloudy, Micrococcus luteus, and I'm going to put it onto this slant. So therefore, I am going to put ML, luteus. Okay, so now, just as before, flame the opening. Flame the loop, loop, red hot. Let it cool down. Flame the opening. Again, do not put the top part down. Keep it opening face down. Work around the fire. Collect your inoculum. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. Flame the opening. Cover. Put away. And now we're going to inoculate the slant. Flame the opening. Now the slant part is facing up. I go in, and this one I am doing a zigzag until I get to the top. Flame the opening, put away, and now we sterilize. So that was how we inoculate a broth to a slant. Next is we're going to do a broth to a plate. Okay, a broth to a plate. So here I have a sterile plate, and for this one I am going to actually I'll use Bacillus subtilis. So therefore you label. Alright, you could always put the date. Again, you do not label on the lid, on the top. You always label at the bottom part. Okay? Not the top, but at the bottom. So as you see, no label here, this is the top, but label here, this is the bottom. No label here, this is the top, you label at the bottom. I keep it upside down. Alright? I keep whatever plate I'm working with upside down. So now I'm going to inoculate from, I said I was going to work with, you know what, let me work with SM, serratia. Okay, I'm going to work with serratia. Oh, sorry. I'll work with Micrococcus. Can't make up my mind. I'll work with Micrococcus. So here I have my sterile plate. I'm going to use the loop. And the way I inoculate the plate all depends on the purpose of that particular, what I'm doing with, what I'm going to do with it. I could just do a simple spread of the culture. I could do a zigzag, or I can do actually a streaking, or do the streak plate technique, or streaking technique. So there are many ways to do it. All right. For this one, I'll do a zigzag because there's no real purpose for, it's just a matter of demonstration. So I'm going to do a zigzag. So we begin by, we did the labeling. So we sterilize our loop. Sterilize our loop until it's red hot, sterilize. And now, just as before, we collect our inoculum. Hold the tip, flame the opening, collect. You could actually hear the sizzling, right? However, that won't kill all the bacteria in there, so it's fine. You collect, flame the opening, and now you put away. And as I said, I'm just going to do a zigzag. Okay, so I cover. You see, I uncover. I could have done it this way and then do that. That's one way of doing it. But for this one, I'm going to do that. Upside down. I do the zigzag. Return it upside down, and then I sterilize. Okay, so that's just one way of inoculating a plate. It's not the only way, but that's one way. Alright, so this is done. Next, we're going to plate to broth. So we're going to go from a plate to a sterile broth. So this is a sterile broth. This is a plate. BS, Bacillus subtilis. So I'll put BS here. I'm going to transfer from the plate to the broth. Now, for transferring from plate to the broth, it's important that you try to use single colonies. All right? Yes, you can actually just scraping and collect, but it all depends on what you're working and the purpose of your inoculations. So for this one, I am going to collect a single colony. So I'm going to collect a single colony and I'm going to introduce it to the broth. Once again, it's upside down because I don't want the condensation or the moisture to fall onto the bacteria on the plate. So I keep it upside down. Flame our opening. Flame the loop. Why am I saying opening? Flame the loop till it's red hot, red hot, red hot. For this one, it is important that you actually wait until it's cool. Okay, because you're going to collect from a colony, so therefore you wait. When it's about 10 seconds, it's cool enough, you are now ready to collect your inoculum. As I told you, you see all these are single colonies, single, 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 single. These are all colonies stuck together, all right? We could see it like this again. We can see lots of colonies stuck together, but it's always nice to use single colonies. So I'm going to collect a single colony. So I turn around and I collect a single colony, and that's good enough. So now I am going to introduce it to my broth. As usual, flame the opening, and then we introduce, okay? A slight touch of the loop to the broth is good enough, but sometimes, a little swirl, a little touch, a little mixing, it won't hurt. Okay, as long as you don't overdo it. Flame the opening, cover, put away, and now finally sterilize your loop. So this was plate to broth. Let me demonstrate one more time. So I'm going to inoculate this. This time I'm going to use serratia. Okay, SM. It is from plate to broth. Yeah, so I'm going to go from serratia to a sterile broth. So the first thing, SM. So I know what I'm working with, or what I'm inoculating. My plate is upside down because the moisture, I don't want the moisture to fall onto the top of the plate, and that is going to get into the culture. So I keep it upside down. Of course, if you do it this way, it doesn't mean that it's going to really actually spoil everything all the time. But it's best to be on the safe side. So now I flame my opening. I flame the loop till it's red hot. It's important to wait a few seconds to let this cool for this particular one. So we are going to put take SM from here, you could see the culture here, to the sterile broth. Now, as I said, sometimes you need single colonies, other times just a touch of bacteria on your culture is good enough. So for this one, I am just going to do, I know this is pretty much all serratia. So I'm just going to touch, all right, a little bit of it. This is way too much, but that's fine. So I have already collected my inoculum for my culture. Now to inoculate. As usual, flame the opening, and then you introduce your inoculum to the broth. You can give a little swirl, a little mixing. A touch of this is good enough. Don't try to put everything. So you can see there's something left. That's fine. A touch of this to this is good enough. Flame the opening, put it away, and now sterilize your loop. Next is we're going to do from broth. So we're going to do from a broth to a dip. So that's a dip here. This one we're going to use a needle. We can use the loop, that's fine, but needles are more appropriate for using for inoculating dips. Again, it all depends on the purpose of that particular inoculation. So I'm going to take some serration. Actually, I'll take Micrococcus luteus, ml, and I'm going to introduce it to this dip. So, Micrococcus luteus. So, what am I going to do first?